Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm your host, Hilmarie Hutchison, and today's guest brings deep insights into the evolving world of leadership, organizational transformation, and strategy, grounded in real-world experience across continents. Ramki Jayaraman is the managing director of Synarchy Consulting, with over 20 years of experience helping organizations navigate complexity with clarity. His approach blends strategic foresight with human insight, focusing not just on big ideas, but on execution, alignment, and culture. From his Indian roots to his professional journey through Dubai and into Africa, Ramki has faced and embraced the raw, hands-on challenges of entrepreneurship and expansion. Ramki, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure to meet you and the audience.
Let's start at the beginning. Can you please tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
I live in Dubai. Dubai's been my second home. Last 20 years I've been in Dubai. I've built my consulting career in management consulting. All my formative years I've spent in India. And then that took the journey to Middle East is where I built my career. And later part of 2010 and 12, I kind of expanded to Africa. And I've been running organization transformation, strategy transformation for corporates, for governments, and for entrepreneurs.
So what was it that brought you to Dubai in the first place?
I think it was my job which brought me here and my earlier corporate career, which kind of transferred me for a position to lead an Oracle practice in Dubai. And then eventually I got bored of the consulting corporate career and set up my entrepreneurship journey quite early on.
Sorry, as you mentioned, early in your career, you chose entrepreneurship over corporate security. What made you take that leap and how did that decision shape your personal and professional growth?
On hindsight, I would look at as serendipity, but I think I'm a builder at heart. I think that the decision came from my own restless self. And I've looked at my career on hindsight. There are moments in life you'd like to achieve things faster. You'd like to, and then grow in a fashion where you don't want to be tied to typical structures of a corporate. I think these specific traits possibly, and a curious nature to explore opportunities, probably that got me to entrepreneurship. And it took long enough for me to figure out that I'm an entrepreneur, actually.
I like that you say you had a curious nature. I think that is very important if you're going to be successful in business. Tell us a little bit about Synarchy and Consulting. What is it that you do?
We're a problem-solving consulting firm. As a boutique firm, we consult on areas on business strategy, which is a core of what we do. Technology consulting is a significant pillar for us. And then finance and people consulting are the two blocks which we kind of work with organizations. Approach has always been a boutique approach to execution. Every organization, every government have got some form of strategy. Everybody knows what needs to be done. I think our focus and the differentiator is how do you make it work? How do you make a strategy tick? How do you get the experience in terms of an execution, the rigor of execution? I think that's a sweet spot that we've been able to work, not just deliver a report, but then deliver results.
Very interesting. You also mentioned earlier on about moving from Dubai into Africa, and expanding into Africa was a challenging experience for you. What did that experience teach you that no business school ever could?
It's what you don't learn in Harvard, honestly. I think it's the context. Every market, I believe, has much more to offer. I think the big takeaway from my Africa experience is listen first. Every market, we need to expand. Every business wants to expand to a new market. First, we need to look at embodying a lot of listening, look at the market structures, look at the partners, look at the informal economies, talk to local partners, because markets will tell you how it want to be served. And then you can have the best of product. What works in Dubai may not work in Lagos. Or it's not because of the product is good or not. It's all about contextualization. And that's the biggest learning for me is how do you adapt yourself to a local context? And that's what I learned in Africa.
That's really interesting. So you really have to understand the local market before you can bring a solution to it. And the secret to really understanding is to listen first. I think that is a very important takeaway. With over 2 decades of consulting experience, how have you seen leadership evolve in response to globalization and technological disruption and changes?
It's a very, very good question. I think leadership has evolved a lot from a command control coordination to more about collaboration. So it's not a rank and file anymore. It's all about building cross-border teams. It's about cross-organizational structures. Organizations from vertical structures have become more circular is what I have seen in the last 20 years. And that's a big change. because we need to adapt. We need to carry everybody together in this journey of leadership.
You advocate for human centered transformation. In your view, what's the missing link between digital transformation and employee well being?
I think it's all about the right work design. Today, we have much more tools to track our time. We have much more what do you call the technology in the AI and your gadgets and notification. And then as much we are connected, I have a feeling that we are disconnected at the same time. So that's a very interesting paradox. With all the transformation that we're talking about, we are very digitally active, but then how many people are really connected at work? It's a very different question. And that would happen only with empowerment and making lives with simpler workflows and giving them much more meaning to the job is how you will be able to connect your human-centered transformation. That's the big missing link which I see today.
So the things you mentioned there was to have meaning in the job, which I think is, as you say, really important, but to also have simpler workflows and to ensure empowerment within the team.
True.
Let's talk about resilience. What are some practical ways businesses can stay agile and future ready, especially during uncertain times?
I use a formula called a 70-20-10. Most businesses work on broadly 2 or 3 paradigms. A lot of them get stuck in one paradigm, which is the core business. If it's, let's say, it's a manufacturing company, if it's a trading company, that's the core of what they did. They've been doing it for last so many years. That's a core of what organizations have done. But to build an organizational resilience, especially in times like these, with disruptions and technology, we need to put a formula called as a 70-20-10, where you spend 70% of your growth should come from what we call as a core business. 20% of your business should come from what I call as a growth business or a new growth areas or diversification. And 10% of your total growth should come from breakthrough ideas, could be disruptive, it can be completely exponential. At some point in time, that 10% would become your future growth, and that can possibly become your core growth is one formula that businesses can adopt to build a resilience.
So that is the risk to businesses, is if they stick to only one core product without exploring other avenues that could later on become part of their business. So your recommendation is split it up, have 70% in your core business, but then spend some time in developing other avenues.
It's not an exact formula here, but that's a broad thing which I have seen where organizations thrive, because as markets change, as technology change, as new models come, as governments and regulators change, it is going to change the way businesses have been operating. Building that kind of a 70-20-10 mix gives a certain flexibility to organizations, build a certain resilient quadrant. Otherwise, you're hit like a dinosaur. You don't know what you hit them, and then you really see a shrinking market share or whatever. So these are some mechanisms to build resilience is what I would recommend to. It is what we do with a lot of my clients.
You mentioned earlier on that your focus is on execution, because many organizations do invest heavily in strategy, but then struggle with execution. What do you believe successful transformations apart?
People. Ultimately, you can have a great ambition, great vision, but who make them work as people? Differentiating factor between a great organization and a very super great organization is the collective mind, and that kind of defines the culture in the organization, and that people quality alone determine the growth, the innovation, the way they're able to take on to their market head on. It's all about empowering people.
Yeah, I think sometimes, particularly in large organizations, it can be a risk that companies forget that it's the people that's at the core of everything that's the most important part. So I think that is very good.
Which is so true, because sometimes what happens in some of these large corporates is they become so big they're driven by structures. But then structures are important too. Without a structure, you really can't scale a repeatable business model at scale. But then the structures have to be constantly, reevaluated, because it's the people who made those structures. At some point, if the structures don't work, we should be open enough to let go of the structure to adapt to people empowerment. And that's always a challenge in large setups.
Yes. What advice would you give to leaders who are stuck in old models of top-down decision-making in today's collaborative, tech-driven world?
I think it's about people again, and instead of moving decisions about people, somebody sitting at the top make decisions of people on a line hierarchy below. It's all about decisions with people. It's all about co-creation, and it's all about creating a cross-functional mission It should be like a project mission is what I would put in. You put every right-minded people across functions and then build that data transparency in the organization and let the team own and drive. Because and then each teams can be a small ship and the captain of the ship drives to whatever goals that organizations pursue. So rather than taking a decision structure, sitting at the top and then about people, working with people would probably the only way organizations will thrive in the future.
Really interesting. You've worked across diverse markets in the Middle East, Africa. How has that multicultural exposure shaped your consulting approach?
It's been breathtaking, I would say, because every market offers something new to learn. What you learn is culture. What you learn is about adaptability. It has built resilience in me and my leadership team and my own firm because that exposure, let's say we do a consulting for a large government transformation in Dubai, is the same government transformation, but the lenses in which we approach in a cross-continental context, I think context trumps everything here. And then that contextualization has been able to absorb and readjust a certain framework to a local market so that then you're able to bring that objective solution to the clients.
Yes, I think you're so right. Every market, because it's so different, it's an opportunity to learn something new. As you said, whether that's culture or learning how to adapt to different situations, and then, of course, then to build that resilience. Again, it's not for everybody. Not everyone's going to thrive under those conditions where things are constantly changing or you're having to constantly adapt to things or approach things differently because of the circumstances. But if you're able to, you can be really successful.
So I'll also add to saying that it's all about having a global thinking because it's important to have a global thinking so that you don't reinvent everything. Because if you keep reinventing everything, you can't build an organization at scale. But then you keep the global framework intact, but then you localize it. It's all about localization then.
Yes, that's where you're going to have the most success.
Sure.
You work with entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, executives. What common leadership blind spots do you help them uncover?
A lot of leaders think activity is not impact. So I think people say, okay, I do this activity, I'm tracking this. And when I actually decode and sit with them to say they are tracking an activity, I'll give you an example. Let's say if you're discussing sales strategy for a large organization, and he says, I've got a big team of salespeople, I track their pipeline, I track their growth, I track their meetings. This is purely activity tracking. But then if I were to flip that script and say, what's been the impact? How many of your pipeline is at a 90% probability of a closure within 30 days? That's a very different framing altogether. So that's one blind spot which I generally see where organizations tend to be more focused on activity and ignoring the impact. This is one. The second broader leadership blind spot I've seen would be underinvesting in the middle management because middle management are super important for building what I call as the organizational backbone. And over a period of time, I've seen the level of innovation, the level of scaling up because markets have changed, the customers have changed, the preferences have changed, and organizations sometimes tend to miss out investing heavily in middle management as much they do for the senior management. I think that's another blind spot I have come across in my career.
Right. So on the first one that you mentioned, that activity is not impact. So that is what we'd call busy work versus actually getting something done. And that would need an organization to sit down from time to time and evaluate their systems or the projects or the things they're working on to see if it's actually adding value or if it's just doing something that doesn't actually have an impact at the end of the day.
Yeah, we've been busy being busy. Its question is tracking that outcome. So when you have that outcome-based assessment, and that's when you'll be able to distill these activities, and then all these activities should result in an impact or an outcome.
And also you mentioned about underinvesting in middle management, because if we underinvest in them, then the leaders of the future, right?
They're the leaders of the future, A, and they are the stability carriers of organization. Every organization will have a typical pyramid structure. We have a top management, we have middle management, we have low management. That pyramid structure itself is changing to a line hierarchy like we covered earlier. It's become more collaborative. It's become more circular organizations. And a circular organization, it becomes like a total football. And then which means sometimes middle management have to take a situational leadership role, taking decisions. And if you don't invest heavily in middle management, and then they become your weakest link.
Right. If you've not taught them, you've not trained them, then they're not going to be ready to take on those very important decisions.
And it is also about building their trust as well, because then you're trying to build a very committed and then invested middle management to take the organization to the next goalpost that they've set for themselves.
What's next for you and for Synarchy Consulting? What kind of legacy do you hope to build in the transformation space?
Very good question. We've been thinking about Synarchy's growth, and what it should be is, as with everybody else, they're embracing AI in a big way, trying to build AI led solutions. And then AI is helping us to compress our timelines in terms of diagnostics to execution. So we're able to very quickly diagnose our clients' problems into an execution framework so that AI helps us to give us much more data points faster. So we work with the leadership, we work with the board, we work with the client management to build an execution roadmap. And that's a big pivot that we are seeing in terms of adopting AI in our core workforce. This is one. Two, we would like to leave a legacy for the aspiring family businesses, especially most of the family businesses in the Middle East are in an intergenerational transition. So the second and third generation have come in, and then they are trying to scale the businesses. And we're trying to definitely wanting to be a part of their growth and then bring that experience to the table. That's another growth markers for us to kind of help these companies. Ultimately, for me, Synarchy is passion. It's not just consulting for me. I think Synarchy to me is all about a philosophy of co-creation, philosophy of distilling that complexity into clarity, bring the distilled clarity to the clients, and just enjoy the journey.
Excellent. I like how you say, and I think it's almost crucial, almost goes without saying that all companies have to now consider the impact of AI and that you are adopting it into your workflow. That's really important.
People have this paranoia about whether AI will replace jobs or not. It's a common conversation that I've been hearing from boardroom to a coffee conversation. It's not that AI is not going to replace humans. You're possibly going to be replaced by a person who's using AI better.
Yes, exactly. So it's building those skills already, not to be so afraid of it that we don't know how to use it.
It's important, it's imperative. There's no choice.
Absolutely. Is there anything that I have missed asking you that you would like to tell our audience about?
In a process of an entrepreneurship journey, it's also a deep personal reflection I've gone through time to time. As entrepreneurs, we go through our own crisis, our own challenges, and it builds an individual resilience and then linked to your organizational resilience. And in all of that moments, sometimes what I do is what I call as a strategic pause. Sometimes things can be overwhelming. Sometimes things will not happen the way it has to be planned. It could be personally or professionally as an organization or whichever spectrum of sphere of life that you're in. In those moments, taking a pause and taking that one breath and then trying to recalibrate has helped a long way in terms of adaptive to change is something which I personally followed.
That's excellent. So when we are feeling a bit overwhelmed, when things are not going according to plan, I love what you call it, a strategic pause. Just take that break, take that little bit of time, reset, and then take on whatever that issue is that you're going to deal with. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now we've come to the segment of our show where I will ask you some rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
Ready.
One leadership book that changed your thinking.
I would recommend Grit by Angela Duckworth.
A region that challenged you the most.
I would say Africa.
Tea, coffee, or quiet reflection.
Quiet reflection.
One word that defines effective leadership today.
Beyond boundaries.
In one word, what does transformation mean to you?
Rewire.
And what is one thing that you do every day, no matter how busy you get?
I tend to sleep on time, 9:30.
Sleep is important.
Sleep is very important.
Very good. Well, thank you for playing along. It was easy enough. Now I would like to ask you our signature green pill question. If you took the green pill to go back in time and change one thing about your journey, what would it be?
Very interesting question. If I were to take a green pill and go back in time, I would think everything which has happened in a life's journey is so perfect. Everything is additive. Every opportunity, every setback, every success, every failure have something to learn about. I would think the life is beautiful as it is. But having said that, if one thing that I would want to probably consider changing, possibly would have been a little more focused about how do you deal with money, for example. Because as an entrepreneur, your lines between a professional and a personal wealth, sometimes these lines blur. It's important to build a psychology of money or building those principles intact would be one change I would possibly put in my life.
Ramki, thank you so much for joining me today. Your journey is a powerful reminder that strategy means nothing without execution and leadership is nothing without people. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about Synarchy Consulting?
You could look at Synarchy Consulting website, synarchygroup.com, and you could look at Ramki Jayaraman LinkedIn. We have offices in the downtown Dubai, and happy to have a cup of coffee when you're in this part of the town.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Matrix Green Pill podcast. If this conversation sparked something in you, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We would truly appreciate it. Until next time, lead with insight, act with empathy, and transform with purpose.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.